Hey guys, and welcome to another Schematics update. This time we want to talk about Rollercoaster Tycoon Adventure. You're probably asking, what the fuck is Rollercoaster Tycoon Adventure? It's Rollercoaster Tycoon for the Switch, and I'm Ed4TV and I have Blind and Lewis with me. Hey guys.
Hello.
Hi.
That was a great intro.
Right? So let's talk about Rollercoaster Tycoon Adventure. I remember briefly there was a start engine campaign that we talked about earlier. Anyway, Blind.
So originally this game was titled as Rollercoaster Tycoon Switch, where Atari gave us this lovely start engine campaign where they asked for your money. Large amounts of it, in fact, in a very kind of shady format, which we'll get into it in a second. But essentially they were crowdfunding a port, or what looked like a port, of Rollercoaster Tycoon Touch. And there was a lot of accusations that they were just porting a mobile game, which is why I think they changed the name to Rollercoaster Tycoon Adventure, which we learned about recently during E3 and GDC. So right at the get-go here, it's like they threw this crowdfunding campaign that a lot of people did not like.
There's a linked document on their start engine page that basically described a lot of the legal details about it, and I had gone through it at the time and found something I thought was really kind of interesting. So in total they were asking for $2 million. If you wanted to know where that money went, there was a section that talked about related party transactions. And in this document it mentions that 25% of the money raised would be going from the company that's raising it, Atari Game Partners, to Atari Incorporated.
So essentially they're paying themselves to make their own game.
Yeah, they were paying like another, because like there are three different parties involved. There's the Atari Game Partners, there's Atari Inc., and there's RTCO, and all three of them are owned by the parent company Atari SA. $500,000 was going to Atari Inc., and then they mentioned that a flat, non-refundable $600,000 was going to RTCO. So of the $2 million being asked of, over $1 million was just being paid to these other Atari subsidiaries, which seems kind of weird. I mean, it might be standard business practice, but it gets even weirder when you realize that Todd, who appeared in the original video, was not only the president of Atari Game Partners, but is also the chief operating officer of Atari Interactive and is the manager of RTCO.
He was listed as the COO in the video itself.
Yeah, and so it kind of raises the question of what role did he play in these negotiations?
Yeah, it's a very strange thing altogether. We'll link these documents below and links to the Wayback Machine, of course. But one thing that we would like to pull out of the offering docs in their risks section, they stated that they expect a significant portion of their sales to be made by a relatively small number of key customers. In legal speak, to me, sounds like they expect most of their money to come from rich people who throw a lot of money at the game, which is weird because they've also stated in separate videos, which we'll be talking about in a moment, that they've removed all free-to-play mechanics.
We're still months away from our final delivery, and we completely removed any of the free-to-play mechanics and brought in a more robust simulation that's based off of a classic PC title.
So they've removed free-to-play mechanics, put a price tag onto the game, and added in microtransactions? Like, what is that supposed to mean?
I don't know. I mean, that wording, it sounds like they're talking about kind of microtransaction stuff with a few amount of people spending a lot on in-game purchases, but, it doesn't make much sense if it's a one-time purchase that they would have most of their money coming from a small number of customers.
But regardless, there wasn't a whole lot of interest in the crowdfunding campaign, and it didn't even reach $100,000. It was a very, very small, ineffective campaign, which then led to Atari canceling the crowdfunding campaign. There was an email sent out to people who backed, basically saying, hey, you're not going to get your money. The game went silent for a little bit, and then they stated that they were going to show footage at GDC, which they did. And the footage from GDC looks almost identical to Rollercoaster Tycoon Touch.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like pretty much the same. I mean, this was clearly kind of early, probably, in any sort of work they were doing that. They just got Touch to run on the Switch with probably some basic controls working.
Yeah, it has a different UI. I'll see if I can do a side-by-side here, but it has a different UI. It is using a lot of the same assets. I think the rides are essentially just up-resed versions of Touch, which were originally down-resed versions of Rollercoaster Tycoon World, go figure, and the ride, building images that you're using are straight out of Touch. The UI animations look very similar to Touch. Everything just looks like Touch.
It's worth remembering that the footage that we got out of GDC, this was happening at a time when back when the Star Engine campaign was still going. It was only canceled like a month after GDC.
Crowdfunding campaign was supposed to run for 90 days, if I remember correctly, and they canceled it 5 days to go.
Very unceremoniously.
Yeah, just kind of out of nowhere. Then after that, we got a little bit more footage from E3, thanks to one interviewer. Put out, not great footage, but hey, it's footage, where we see a slightly updated version of the UI. I actually think it looks worse. They've replaced the original kind of pretty bright colored icons from Touch with these kind of flat, uninteresting black icons. I am of the opinion that it just looks worse overall.
Yeah, it looks very bland. I think the UI, it might be like what we might be seeing is just small steps towards a more like unified style, but it's hard to tell just from the E3 to say that, yeah, it looks like it's an improvement at this point.
Nothing looks coherent. Nothing looks good. Like if you look at the trees, they just look uninteresting and awful. The terraforming has this really, and still has, this is back from Touch, has this really weird, like, oh, it's just a wall of dirt for no reason. And it has one level that you can raise it up to. They also stated in the footage from E3 that they're still working on their roller coasters building system, so that isn't even done yet.
I think right here we should talk for a second about the release date, or when it's supposed to be released, which is still this year, right?
I think they said like a holiday release, so I'm not exactly sure when they're looking to release. This does not look like less than 6 months before release.
Not much time left for them to figure out shit, basically, and if the coaster builder is not even done yet, I'm kind of scared about it being ready when it's supposed to release in Q3.
Especially considering the performance, because we don't have a lot of great footage from E3, just like a video camera pointed at a TV screen, but we can still kind of tell that it's stuttering in a lot of places that it really shouldn't
They
be.
did also mention during the E3 footage that they're adding in an adventure mode, similar to classic campaign modes, except it has almost like a weird roguelike-y, you pick perks. Elements change on your rides every single time you play, so it's supposed to make the game replayable. It sounds pretty ambitious. I'm not sure how they're going to implement that in a way that's fun. Let's kind of close this out here. What is everybody's thoughts on this? And is this just Atari ruining the name of Rollercoaster Tycoon even more? Or is this going to turn into something that's maybe worth looking at?
The Switch is very en vogue, and so it totally makes sense for Atari to port it to the Switch. And honestly, it would be a nice game to have on the Switch, because you can just hop in for a couple of minutes while you're on a bus or a train, and commuting to work, and play a little bit of Rollercoaster Tycoon and hop back out. So it's nothing you have to spend a lot of time in the game. So from that point, it totally makes sense. But everything we have seen so far gives me massive headaches.
Yeah, I think my concern right now is just, I would almost have preferred that they just ported Touch over. Like, just be honest about what this thing is, because you're trying to make it look like it's a new entry into the franchise, whereas it's just a mobile port with the microtransactions removed and a proper campaign mode added.
After the E3 one, it definitely looks a lot more like they're just making small changes to Touch to make it run on the Switch, instead of like turning it into a new thing, which is really it's kind of disappointing. After the GDC one, I was thinking, okay, so they have a base, now they can actually build on top of it, but it looks like they're not really doing anything new with it. Frankly, what I want to see them do is release Classic on the Switch. I think that would really be the most exciting thing they could do right now.
100% agree.
I think the controls would be a little bit cumbersome with Classic, because there's a lot of very small buttons, but you could make it work.
I think it'd be like the same challenge, though. I mean, converting Touch to the Switch would be, converting the Touch controls to controller controls, but so would doing Classic. It would be going from Touch controls to, controller controls.
Chris Sawyer, please.
So I 100% agree with Lewis there. I would love to see Classic on the Switch and not Touch on the Switch. But anyway, guys, I think we're done here for today. First of all, Lewis, thanks a lot for joining and working through the whole legal thing from the Start campaign.
Thanks for having me.
And as well, thanks Blind for joining. Thanks you guys for watching the video. If you really enjoyed our video, you may want to head over to Coffee to buy the editor, in this case Blind, a coffee so he can stay up all night after streaming, editing this video to be released tomorrow. So for you today. Anyway guys, thanks a lot for watching again. See you next time. Bye.
Have a good night, everybody. I don't know why I said that. Bye.